Ladies and gentlemen, I am going to try to explain the reading wars, phonics versus whole word, in just a few minutes. This is something I could easily do in an hour, but a few minutes is very difficult. And I would like to start maybe with a few jokes, a lighter mood, but I'll tell you, there's nothing funny about the reading wars. So with that set up, let me just say that 80 years ago, our educators dropped the logical way to teach a phonetic alphabetic language, which is phonics, and they replaced it with something called whole word, and there's been nothing but problems ever since, and now we have 50 million functional illiterates. This is the crime of the century and one of the dumbest things ever done in the history of the world. Now, how to explain this very quickly? Let me just go back 5,000 years. At that time, every language was a picture language, a sign language, a symbol language. You saw a cow, you drew a picture of a cow. That was your language. This is Chinese, picture of something. These are numbers, symbol of something. These are symbols for male and female around the world and different in genetics and so on. No phonetic content anywhere. That's the main thing to focus on. No phonetic content. You learn to draw this and you learn to say it, whatever country you're in, and that's it. A year later you see it, you remember it or you don't. There's no help coming from this thing. It turns out only the smartest Chinese can do 20,000 of these. For an ordinary person to memorize 1,000, 2,000, anything, houses, cars, faces, dogs, numbers, whatever it is. Basically, they're logos. Think of them graphic designs, whatever you want. These languages can work. They have their place. It's just that they have nothing to do with phonetic language. And that's what happened 3,000 years ago. The Phoenicians, the Hebrews, and then into the Greeks and the Romans, they devised alphabetic or phonetic language. The two words mean the same thing. You capture sounds in letters, which you can then write down. And so let's look at a few of those. This is our language now. These things have all kinds of phonetic content. They're screaming at you. Here's how you say me. Here's how you say me. 10 years can go by. You haven't seen this word in 10 years? No problem. You say cove, and then it comes back. So think of phonetic alphabetic language as a giant memory device. English has 1 million words. Typical college graduate might know 200,000, but if you know how to pronounce these, even with our inconsistent pronunciations, like these two O's are doing double duty, it's still all phonetic. It's still all memory friendly. You're able to pronounce all those 1 million words if you have the rudiments. Now, another major problem with our language is we have uppercase and lowercase. Chinese just written one way. So when you get into English, if you make a child memorize this symbol for love, a week later the child sees this, you think you're going to make the connection? No, you're not. You're never going to make the connection. Does this thing look anything like this thing? So actually, not only is whole word totally impossible in a language with 1 million words, but even if you say, okay, these are going to be workers, we'll just doom them to a 5,000 word vocabulary or 3,000 word vocabulary. I think some of the educators were thinking like this in 1920. It still doesn't work because of the nature of American alphabet and our exuberance with inventing new typefaces and new looks, and you can look in the newspaper and see how bewildering it would be. So to summarize it all up, 80 years ago, our educators announced that they would throw out all this memory, all these clues, all these reminders, all this phonetic content. Just throw it out. Don't memorize the alphabet. Don't learn how to pronounce anything. What do you do instead? You're going to memorize each English word as though it was a little sign, a little logo. So the possibility of a child memorizing thousands of English words as symbols is virtually, unless you have a photographic memory, it's virtually impossible. So the children get dyslexia, they get ADD, they get all kinds of feelings of incompetence and inadequacy, especially boys have more trouble than girls. Children that come from low reading homes, let's call it, low literacy homes, they have much more trouble. A lot of children just kind of figure out phonics, but the truly miserable ones are the ones who are trapped in whole word for their whole lives, and we call those people functional illiterates. And as I say, our educators did this, and there's really no excuse for it. Now, I put an article on my site. The name of the article is The War Against Reading, number 30 on improveeducation.org. It's quite long, but it has quotes from all the major players if you want that kind of detail. But the essence of it is you take something that works. It's like the difference between heaven and hell, oil and water, up and down. They just don't mix. You cannot teach a phonetic, alphabetic language like English as though it were a sign language.